thing I like about any vehicle is when you own it and you start to see the evolution over the years, well, you start to grow more fond of it, or in some cases, well, distance yourself. For Mazda owners, they definitely are loving what they're seeing. Hey, welcome to this edition of Road Warrior. I'm your host, Grant Roberson. Now behind me is the 2018 Mazda 6. Now, I'm a big fan of Mazda. I own the CX-7 and I've seen that evolve, and well, the 6 has definitely done the same. So while the competition chisels up every angle and orifice on the exterior, Mazda 6 does a little bit more refined curvaceousness and soft around the edges, literally. Now the only chiseling is possibly this line through here, but even it is curved just enough. Sweep around to the back, really this implied spoiler, everything has nice soft edges. As you sweep up, really what you're going to notice is a little bit of the fender flare up there, but nice soft curved lines. Comparative to the competition, there's a lot of chiseling going on, refinement, but what Mazda 6 does well is really subdue the overall look. Still having enough curves, enough chiseling, enough, well, edge design, but just softening it just a hair. The biggest feature on the Mazda 6 is the overall size of this vehicle. Really a great offering when you look at the numbers. Now the overall length is over 191 inches, wheelbase fairly stretched at 111. That's going to equate to great interior volume, not to mention decent cargo to boot. But as you can tell, it has a fairly long look to the vehicle itself. Now as for width, no apologies about it, just over 6 feet wide, but fairly aerodynamic at just under 5 feet tall. Now interestingly, the vehicle looks like it snugs the road, but it actually has a decent ground clearance of over 6 inches. Now that doesn't really translate to me when you get on the inside, because it is somewhat of a tuck down and fold in for my overall height. Now what I like, again, from the profile, what you can see is that front flare really sweeps down but disappears as it gets to about the middle of the front door. Otherwise, it basically blends in with the design. Some vehicles are really sculpting their vehicles from front to end, really looking like a Greek statue. This one really stops there, gives the implied migration of that line to the back, but otherwise tight lines to the side with just some flares here and there. The best feature on this Mazda 6 has to be this color, and the fact that, well, body color is everywhere. Minimal chrome is going to be found on the sides with just a little bit of accent around the window. The grille warfare up front is where the chrome truly stands out, but body color here on the mirrors, on the handles, really a nice dramatic color but subdued approach when it comes to coupling it with the accents. Now when it comes to design, you'll notice this kind of low front end. Again, that fender flare that disappears here is somewhat picked back up, angling up, really wedging this back design. That gives this kind of a wedge look, that really aerodynamic knifing through. Now what's not knifing is the designs. Again, really no hard edges, nothing that's going to cut you visually in when you look at it. Otherwise, really nice softening of the edges. Now when it comes to ingress, we always talk about the smart key systems. Of course, the Mazda 6 has that. Really right here at the driver's door, the way it works is it's a one press to get in the driver's door, press again, opens everything up. Now the one thing I've always argued is, why not put those access points at every door? Makes things just a little bit simpler. Now when it's locked, basically it's real easy to walk away, lock it up with the press of a button. Now how does that translate to the fill up area? What's great is it's always locked. Even when you unlock it, it's still going to be locked. The reason for that is Mazda still goes old school with that hatch release, which makes this area secure. For any sedan, what truly wins out when it comes to overall size is really coupling it nicely with cargo volume. Now when it comes to design, really a nice aerodynamic sweeping here to the implied rear spoiler, a little curvaceousness on the deck lid itself, but otherwise pretty much straight lines. Body color again everywhere, a little bit of chrome, really nice and polished. This really couples nicely with that huge grille warfare I'll show you in just a second. Backup sensors and a backup camera. Now when it comes to accessing this, really easy to do, really just a nice electronic release here, pops it open. What you're going to notice is really this springs up out of the way, really nice and light, and really gets up out of there. Even better is the operation here is tucked away, really making everything look nice and premium, hid behind the inner walls of the operation. Now when it comes to cargo, around about 14.7 cubic feet. A little on the modest size when it comes to a vehicle this big, but just enough. Even better, nice niches on the side. That truly comes into play when you're going to play on the golf course or whatever. Golf clubs truly need that extra space, and they're going to fit in here quite well. So there's some chrome accents here and there. The four corners definitely dressed up with some chrome, but really nothing compares to this front end grille warfare. And this almost takes it to a Maserati level, a Jaguar-ish front end, and you can see it in this huge, nice polished chrome accent all the way around, darkened inset here when it comes to the grille, nice and riveted, really giving you a lot of variation when it comes to overall design versus a standard slat design, which would just look, well, not as menacing. And the menacing really comes down to these really dynamic headlights, really giving this front end an aggressive approach. Almost looks like it's growling at you as it kind of looks in your rearview mirror and see this. Now again, body color all the way around, really a nice flat hood through here, because we got this accent and this design over here on the side. Really need to keep it nice and simple, but you'll notice that it kind of protrudes, noses itself into traffic. Nice lower flare down here as well, and again picking up a little bit more chrome accent down low. So when it comes to power plant, well, there's kind of two options: a 2.5 liter inline four-cylinder non-turbo, or the as-tested turbo version. Now this is equipped on the Grand Touring, the grander side of things. And what does that mean at the end of the day? Well, for the standard 2.5 liter, that's going to be around about 187 horses and 186 foot-pounds of torque. For the turbo edition, 227 horses and 250 foot-pounds of torque. Now the engine can be coupled with a 6-speed manual or 6-speed automatic transmission, but the bigger engine truly only comes in the automatic. Now we talked about the ease of ingress when it comes to accessing basically with the smart key system, but for backseat drivers, one thing you'll notice is really the low roof line with my 6-foot-plus frame. Well, doesn't really work out too well. What I'm referring to is really getting inside. It can be a head banging affair. So what you got to do is really just kind of grab in here, slide in, and tuck your head. And that's mainly because of the overall low roof line and aerodynamics. Now once inside, plenty of comfort to go around. The back seat truly nice and voluptuous, individualized attention when it comes to the sports seating on the outer side. Decent space for the middle occupant, not too shabby with a hump. It is one there, but there's enough room really for everyone to find comfort overall. Now as for legroom numbers, 38 inches back here, around about 42 inches up front. And what you'll notice really is overall position of the seats with this, even as far back as it goes, plenty of legroom, and there's actually little niches here to give a little bit even more space when it comes to knees impacting the seat back. One area that can be an afterthought is backseat drivers and their overall comfort, but one thing that helps with that on the Mazda 6 are these rear console vents that can help deliver air directly to your backseat drivers, and that's wonderful on a hot summer day like we have now, really getting the airflow going versus using the front occupants' vents. One surprising area of premium luxury was right between the backseat drivers in the form of the center console. Nice padded elevated elbow support, shallow tray right here really to put some devices, phones, whatever, little USB connection as well. But what you also find is heating up of seats back here for the both outer occupants, 3 levels of comfort as well, and dual cup holders. The one area where you'll find the most premium is in the front seats, first with the captain chairs and the overall leather stitching and padding, giving a nice cushion. Now what you also find is that they are heated like the back seats, but also cool with the press of a button, really with all those perforated holes delivering cooling in the heat of the summer. Now the Mazda 6 was pretty much adorned in black from head to toe on the inside, which tended to make the interior heat up just a little extra here in the heat of the summer. Now front and center on the dash is a huge touchscreen system, but one thing to note, it is kind of an arm stretch away, though you can access it fairly simple if you do have, well, longer arms. Now what you'll typically do is use the central knob there between the front occupants. That is a typical setup you'll find on a lot of premium vehicles. Allows you to use a singular knob, dial in exactly what you're looking for, hit enter, and then scroll through. And what I like is that allows you really to, once you learn the system, pretty much navigate with ease. So the center knob is like one you see on a lot of vehicles, BMWs, Lexus, whatever, and it does have some nice shortcuts. Once you really memorize this operation, it really prevents you really from looking down. But this toggle does everything you want, from turning, toggling up left and right, and it'll select everything you want right up above. Now if you do get lost, you can simply press that right there and find your favorite shortcut. For climate controls, you'll find dual zones up front with a specific digital readout for both front occupants, as well as the heating and cooling down of seats on both sides. You also do have a heated steering wheel. Now down here is the various functions for mode. Now one thing I do prefer is a knob here when it comes to fan speed, because I just can't seem to find these at night or when I'm driving down the road. A knob does make for an easier reach, but you can of course turn it up and down using those buttons. When it comes to the gauge clutch, you're going to find an analog tachometer on the far left, but right there in the middle is a digital readout when it comes to the speed. Now it's kind of an implied analog speedometer, but it is of course a digital readout. Now what's great is that information can be changed as you're going down the road, really give you a lot of up-to-date information, specifically even right here when you've got the cruise control on, with the setting of how far away between you and the drivers in front of you. Now you won't find here is a digital readout specifically for your speed. Instead, that actually is in the heads-up display there on the window. This vehicle comes with lots of safety built in, from parking sensors, radar detection when it comes to cruise control, blind spot awareness, and lane departure. Now, lane departure is somewhat autonomous, which basically means as you should slightly veer left and right, and it senses you're going out of your lane, it will slightly tug to counteract that. Now, I'm not a big fan of that, so what I like to do is turn it off. Even better, once you turn it off, it kind of stays off until, well, you want to visit it again. Now this vehicle does have kind of a 360 view, first with the front camera, back camera, and the cameras mounted on the mirrors. And you can see that with the press of a button there by the front steering wheel. Allows you to see the bird's eye view and different camera angles. Now, one thing I noticed is the cameras seem to be somewhat standard definition, which means they're not really HD to my satisfaction. It gives you a little bit of blurriness when you look at it. But overall, it at least gives you a good look at what lies around. Way low on the dash is a nice little area to store some items. The only thing I couldn't find was any connectivity, so pretty much you're going to put your things there and, well, find some type of long cord to charge them up. Now between the front occupants, you will find this cover here to hide away your dual cup holders if you want to make things look a little bit more regal, but simply tucks out of the way. You'll find dual cup holders with nice little grippers to hold your drinks in place. Now there is a center console, offers decent elbow support, but should you move your seats forward, this console is actually a little too far back. My elbows seem to fall in this area right here, made it a little bit uncomfortable. Now as for what lies beneath is, once you pop it open, you will find USB connections and a power supply, as well as a nice deep storage. Now it does for this edition. We're going to test drive behind the wheel of the 2018 Mazda 6, a vehicle that really delivers when it comes to size, sportiness, refinement, and really separates itself from the competition by, well, subduing the overall chiseling and smoothing out the edges for a, well, more dynamic approach compared to copycat what the competition is doing. Now when it comes to interior volume, great legroom across the board, not to mention couples nicely with that cargo at the back end, and overall this vehicle is a decent size sedan that can truly deliver you down the road, both when it comes to you and your friends and the horsepower under the hood. Now as always, thank you for watching this edition of Road Warrior. Keep both hands on the wheel and eyes straight ahead.